have something to show you. Come on over. How to draw an eastern box turtle. In my book, Mossy, the main character is an eastern box turtle. I chose that kind of turtle because they live in New England, where I do, and they are terrestrial. They live on the ground. They can go in water, but they mostly live on the ground. And she's going to grow a garden on her back. That's part of the story. And so, of course, she couldn't live underwater. So that ruled out a lot of the other beautiful painted turtles and spotted turtles that we have in our ponds and lakes in Massachusetts. I can't wait to show you my new friend. Her name is Amelia, and she's an eastern box turtle. She belongs to Julia Ann Boyce, who's one of my friends from the chicken world. And she told me all about her turtle, that her eastern box turtle, thank you, hi Amelia, that she has had since 1994, and she is how old?
She's mid-20s.
She's in her mid-20s, so she could grow up to be 100 years old. Okay, thank you, Amelia and Julia Ann. She's beautiful, and I'd like you to come in with me to my art studio, and I'll show you how to draw an eastern box turtle. I would like to start by drawing some simple shapes. And the first one is, if you could just think of a cereal bowl upside down, that would be a good way to start the carapace or shell of the turtle. And the female actually has more of a domed carapace, so this is the time that you could decide whether you want your turtle to be a boy or a girl. If it's a girl, it's up more like a steep hill, and the male's shell would go a little bit flatter on the top. And then it goes out a little bit, and I'm making this a curved line to indicate that it's a round shape in real life, because I'm drawing it on a flat surface, and this will show that it's actually round in real life. And then here's the part where the two pieces of shell connect, and it goes down under here, but I'm going to cover that with the front and back legs, and this will extend all the way out to here. And then the turtle's head, go out about maybe a half an inch and make an egg shape. I'm aiming her head up a little bit as if she's looking around. And her neck is stretched quite a bit because she's looking around. Maybe she's looking for Scoot, who's the male turtle. And I start with an egg-like shape. And then I'm going to flatten the top of her skull just a bit. And then here I'm going to point the forehead out just a tiny touch. And about 2/3 of the way down, I'm going to go up a little bit and then back. That's probably the hardest shape you're going to draw. It's the turtle's mouth. And it almost looks like a parrot's beak. And underneath, she has kind of an overbite. And you can see that her chin comes down here, but it goes a little bit below this notch of her beak. Now, you'd think the eye would be right in the middle. It's actually quite far forward on her head, and it has a little bulgy shape so that you can put the roundish eye. I say roundish because it's a little bit egg-shaped, and then it almost looks like an eyebrow above it, but I'll do a little shading so that will look more like a bulge. And then I'm going to use a little line right here to kind of indicate that where her head will be going out. It's wider here than here. And then she actually has a little nose, and there's a nostril right there. So I'm going to work on her legs next. So her front leg comes down almost like a little knee there. And then I'm going to draw the claws in first. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll see just a little bit of the, would be like her thumb. And this is almost a square shape. And then I'll draw in her toes. And I can show some little wrinkles. And you can almost see where the muscle is right there. And then this front leg will be covered with scales. They're reptiles, and their scales are actually very beautiful because they'll have a little bit of a different coloration than the rest of her body. And then about right here, you can see where there's a fold of skin that wrinkles because she can put her head right into underneath her carapace to protect herself. And going back to her eye, because most animals, you look at their eyes to see what they're thinking about. And even though she's a reptile and probably doesn't have the same thoughts as a human being, in order to make my story be believable, and I want the turtles to have emotions. So I'm going to do a little extra work and give her human-like features. So she has a small area of skin that goes around her eye, but I'm going to just make a little line right here to make her look making her look a little bit thoughtful. Boy, she looks a little worried. I'll remedy that by making her mouth go up a little bit. And then maybe she'll be looking down at the ground because she's looking for something yummy to eat. And there's the pupil of her eye. And then we'll put a little mushroom here because one of the favorite foods of the eastern box turtle is fungi. Oh, and we need to put those other legs in. So you don't really see them because of the moss, the other one. She would be living on the forest floor. And they have 4 toes in the back. And there is a species that's very similar that has 3 toes. So if you wanted to change your turtle into the 3-toed turtle, you could put 3 toes on there. And then this shows the bottom of her shell, the plastron, and it actually sticks out right there. So I'm just going to go over that front leg where it sticks out, and then her tail is very small. But the boy's tail is a little bit larger. Now, this is the part. I find this hard to draw a turtle because its carapace is divided into sections. So the bottom part isn't as difficult because you can just make little squares going. And it might help you if you draw it in pencil very lightly, just a little line there so you get them even. They're quite even. And then these are called scoots, these little sections, and there's 5 of them going down her back. And then there's 4 going down this way. And the male turtles have a lot more reddish color in them. And for some reason I thought turtles were green, but actually this turtle is black and yellow, most of the females, and the males have a lot more red, especially during breeding season. Their heads can turn really bricky red, and they have different patterns on their carapace. And that's one way you can identify them because that will not change as they grow and they get to be very old. There's one that was that they documented was 138 years old. So if you saw a turtle in the woods, you could take a picture of it, and if you saw that turtle again, you would be able to know that that's the same one because of its designs on its shell, and they vary a lot. And they almost look like little splash marks, but they can be connected, these marks, or they can be almost like a sunburst shape. They could be little dots. Some of the turtles that I've seen photographs have little dots, and some of the turtles are almost black. But of course, I wanted to show colorful turtles, so I made my turtles with a lot of color on them. So I'm making a little butterfly or a heart shape on her at the bottom of her carapace. Now I can color her in. I'm just going to show where she's going with the moss. She's climbing over some moss. And you can just see it in a little indication of her back leg. And they have kind of a wrinkly face. Oh, I forgot the bottom of her neck is often lighter colored, and she's got some spots there. She's blending into the forest floor, and the forest floor may be dappled with light and have different pine needles and moss, and so that shape will break up her outline. And really, the baby turtles are the ones that are lost to predators. Once they have reached to be an adult, they can bring their legs and their head into their shell, and that protects them from predators. So if like a coyote came along, or a bobcat, which both of those predators we have in our woods, they can just stick all their soft parts underneath the shell. Now I'm going to do a little shading first, so I'm going to pick some gray and under her head, and her shell would probably stick out further than the under part of her body, so that would create a shadow there. A little tail. And then here's her plastron. I'm going to put a little shadow there. And this is trying to create the illusion that she is three-dimensional and is not flat. And I'm just doing that with my gray. Have her little toes. And then this is really not going to show too much because she's got a dark colored shell. But where the yellow patterning shows, then this gray will show through. But you can see the effect that it has. And these kind of go out like a little skirt. And then I'm going to work very carefully. I'm just getting the right amount of paint on my brush on her eye, because this will help me to try to show how that bulges out. And then her parrot-like beak. And the yellow wouldn't show through. So you can put black on yellow, but not yellow on black. Oops, too much. And their back legs aren't quite as yellowy as their front legs. So I'm drawing these patterns, and I had a lot of fun with the male turtle. Hit the scoots on the male turtle. I put my granddaughter's name in the scoots. Her name is Torrance, so see if you can find it when you're looking in the book. That was kind of like a little artistic joke. And the one thing I discovered about turtles when I was doing my research is in this species, the eastern box turtle, in general, the boys have ruby red eyes and the females have gold and yellow eyes. So I'm going to put a little brown on my brush and do the irises of her eyes, which are kind of a golden color. And every once in a while, they'll come across a turtle that is a little different, that doesn't have the ruby red eyes. But I thought it was a great way to show the difference between the male and the female. Scoot and Mossy. Scoot's the boy turtle. And then she's a little bit yellowy underneath. And now I'm mixing black and brown to get the shell color. And it's kind of bluish when the light shines on it. But when I'm doing this painting, I have to really concentrate because I want to leave a little white line between the scoots. And it's quite obvious when you see a turtle that there's those sections are separated by this little margin. And then if I was drawing it, like for example, the jacket of the book, I'd probably spend like at least a day on a turtle this size. And I would go back, and rather than leaving it white, I'd make that very, very pale gray. So here's the forward scoots. And of course with Mossy, you never see her in her full glory because she's got her garden on her back and you don't see all her beautiful patterning. Except for maybe the first page, you can see what it looks like when she's just a young turtle. And turtles find their mates by sight. And scientists have put turtles right next to each other, but with a screen in between, and they won't pay any attention to each other. But then once that screen is lifted and the male sees the female, then he goes over to get acquainted. So I hope that you enjoy making a pretty design on your turtle's back because it really can vary quite a bit almost getting done here. And now for her legs. So some of the things a turtle would eat would be berries, and they would also eat fungus. They love mushrooms. So that's why I drew a little mushroom for her to eat. And insects. Earthworms are a big favorite. And they use these claws in order to make their nests where they lay their eggs. So she would, once it came time for her to lay her eggs, she'd find a soft sandy place and dig a nice hole in order to lay her eggs where they'll be safe. And that's actually where turtles suffer the most from predators, is because different animals will know about turtles laying their eggs and will dig them up and eat them, and they'd probably be very nutritious. Skunks would do that. Maybe a snake would eat them. I'm not sure about the snake, but I know about skunks being one of the animals that eats turtles' eggs. So I'm making her face a little bit grayer than it normally would be so you can see her expression. I'm using my artistic license. And then I'm going a little bit darker here because I want to indicate the texture of her scoots a little bit later. I need that dark color to show you. And how about some green for the moss? And one of the tricks that I use is once I get my green established, I'm keeping it nice and wet, this color, lots of water in it, because I will go over it with some other colors of green. And first I will take my brush, I've got to get in closer there so you can see her claws. I'm taking all the paint out of it, and now it's just got water. I'm loading it with water, and then I'm just dotting it over that green, and it will create a little bit of a texture. And if usually I'd be painting it, the painting would be flat, and it makes kind of a little flowery shape. And here's some other colors of green, because moss often has lichen growing in it, and there are different colors of moss that are growing. So that's underneath her. I could actually take a little bit of my bluey black and put it right under her, because she would be creating a shadow. Here's her leg back there. And then the mushroom, I forgot to put some shadow on it. I'm just going to quickly put a little shadow on. There's this mushroom that I see in the woods around here that's a beautiful lavender color. And they're edible, supposedly. I would never eat one because I don't know how to tell. And then I'll put my light color. And this is another thought that when you're using your watercolors, if you just rinse your brush out so there's no paint in it, and then go over, kind of rub with your brush, you can take off paint, and that will create a texture. And also, in this case, it's making the turtle's head look a little bit rounder. And now she's just about finished. But one thing I'd like to do is that there's each scoot has like a little bit of a texture to it. It's almost like concentric rings, little tiny ridges in the scoot, and I'm going to show those with this white gouache I'm putting on. Now, gouache is a watercolor. It's just very opaque, which means it's not very see-through. They come in a different kind of tube than a regular watercolor. But I could also use a colored pencil for this. But it just gives it a little bit of a texture. And if I was at home working on this, all day long, I'd be spending hours and hours doing this. So I'm doing it quickly. I could even use a colored pencil to do it, but I don't think the paint is quite dry enough for it to show. Oh, she's almost done. There she is, Mossy. A female eastern box turtle, and an artist should always sign their work. Well, whether you put a garden on your turtle's back or not, I hope you enjoy drawing your eastern box turtle.